Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and the rebuild of our 35-foot sports cruiser manufactured by Sealine. In our last video we started building and fitting the ceiling framing in the forward cabin. This framing serves two purposes. Firstly, it will carry the vinyl ceiling pads, and secondly, it acts as reinforcement to the forward deck. Without this structural support, the deck can flex when walked on and could potentially cause damage long term. In order to finish the ceiling framing, we need to first bond the heads bulkheads into place. We bonded and fixed the bulkhead between the heads and forward cabin in our last video, and now we need to cut and bond the bulkhead between the heads and saloon. So let's pick up where we left off last time. Okay, it's a few days later and this bulkhead is now fully bonded into place and cured. So we've used the 3M 5200. We just put a little bit down this edge here because there was a few gaps from when we'd mounted this bulkhead, and then we've run 5200 all the way down on the bottom, on the base here, and then thickened epoxy on the plywood joint. Obviously we've got a little bit of squeeze out on that edge there, so we will give that a quick sand just to beautify it. It's all going to be covered anyway, but it's just a pride thing, I guess, so we'll make sure that that all looks nice. And next what we need to do is fix this one. So this is the main entrance into the heads. So we've got to cut the aperture here. So we're just trying to constantly work out what the original factory did. So we're sort of having to second guess a little bit how they did it, because obviously we don't have the exact measurements, but we do know what the door width is. It's 420 millimeters. We've measured that off an actual factory boat. We've got a height here that we can work to on this doorway, so we'll just carry that on through. And then what we're going to do, because we know the door width of 420, we'll make this opening about 460. That'll give us 20 mil either side for a frame and a little bit of a gap as well for hinges, etc. So yeah, what we need to do now is just get this removed, get that aperture cut in to here, and then get that again bonded into place. Okay, so a few data marks and it's out with the bulkhead and down into the workshop. Now we measure and mark the doorway based on measurements taken from a factory boat, and then use the track saw to cut out the doorway, finishing off the corners with a handsaw. Next we cut and fit a temporary brace to keep the bulkhead legs supported and correctly spaced while we're fitting in the boat. Back in the boat, a quick test fit to double check everything fits correctly, a few final adjustments, and then we mix up some thickened epoxy and use masking tape to keep the epoxy off any unwanted surfaces. Start by applying epoxy to the slot in the floor and slide the bulkhead leg into place. We then move on to the bulkhead edges and apply thickened epoxy with a stirring stick. We also apply 3M 5200 to the bottom of the doorway legs, which come into direct contact with the shower tray. few screws to hold everything into place, a bit of clean up, and the job is done. Alrighty, so we've got that doorway fixed into place now. So epoxy on this edge here with some stainless steel screws just to sort of pull it up and just to make sure we got some squeeze out, which we've just wiped away. Same here as well on this corner here. So again, we've got some screws just coming in from the back and just pulling all that together. That's effectively formed sort of like a triangle here. So that's now really, really solid. Obviously, once it's gone off as well, once that epoxy's gone off, will be really strong. And then we've also got the 5200 just here where it touches the fiberglass. Same here as well. And then we've also epoxied the bottom here where it goes into the floor. A little screw there as well just to pin it up, pin it in. And this brace here just to make sure that this gap for the doorway is absolutely equal all the way from top to bottom. So next what we're going to do is, just so we don't disturb that, we don't want to kick any of this, we're going to move outside and we're just going to remove some of the teak flooring. So just in the cockpit area, and we've got to get this teak up. Some muppet has used screws to fix it down, so we need to drive these screws out, wind the screws out backwards, drill those out and fill them with epoxy. But first we just obviously need to get the teak up. It's a horrible job. We've been putting it off for a while, to be honest with you, but it needs doing. Right, well this started off really well, so we got this section up really quite easily. This was a little bit tougher, got stuck here, but this bit is just proving to be really difficult. It seems to have more adhesive down this end and it just doesn't want to let go, so tried all sorts of different things. We've got like a cutting blade on here, just sort of trying to get underneath, but also, as well as the teak, you've got like this fiberglass backing as well, which is sort of really making it tough to get through. But anyway, we'll keep persevering. I think next what we're going to do is try maybe cutting this into sections with a saw, with a circular saw. So if we go down the middle of a plank, 5mm saw depth, and just see if we can perhaps break it down in sections and see if that helps. So back to it, using the small circular saw to cut the teak into sections, and then using the multi-tool and chisels to slowly peel away sections of this very, very stubborn teak. Finally, the teak is up, and now we can start the cleanup process. Quick sweep with a dustpan and brush, and then finish off with the hoover. So we've cleaned all that teak off now. That was a lot harder going than we thought. Started off really well just here, so I think the reason for that is now quite clear. There's very little adhesive really down this end, but then as you start to go down here, you can see they used a lot more adhesive, and that was really hard going to get that up. So struggled with that a little bit. This bit here, not too bad. So that's all up. We've still got some cleanup to do around the edges, but we're not really worried about that at the moment. The reason that we want to get this teak up is because of these screws. So you can see one down here, and we've got one down in this corner here as well. And what we're worried about is because we've got a little bit of water coming in through our temporary roof at the moment, it's coming down onto here, this is getting absolutely wet through, and we're just concerned that these screws are going to leak. So what we're going to do is give this all a nice quick clean, identify the screws, just mark them with a pen, and then what we'll be doing is drilling them out, and we can fill those with epoxy. Here we're just using some multi-surface cleaner in a spray bottle, and then a bucket and sponge to clean up the area as much as possible. Here I'm carefully using a sharp chisel to remove some more excess adhesive, another quick hoover, and the area is now clean. We've given that a good clean, so you can just see now it's a lot easier to spot the screws, and then we've just put some yellow tape as well just so we don't miss them. So Richard's just going to grab a drill now, we'll obviously wind out these screws, and then we'll just pop a 5 or 6 millimeter hole through, and that will go down into the guest cabin. We mark up the rest of the screws with masking tape. Now we can start to remove all the screws. Next we use a 6 millimeter or 1/4 inch drill and drill out the holes all the way through into the aft cabin. Down in the aft cabin, we now use this hole as a marker to come up from underneath with a larger hole cutter and carefully remove the balsa. Where the balsa is damp or rotten, remove the balsa and dry the area with a heat gun. We can now apply parcel tape, which epoxy will not stick to, and tape up the small holes, ready for backfilling with thickened epoxy. Okay, so we're in the back cabin and we've drilled down through into this laminate, and then we've gone back up with a 50 millimeter hole. So you can see just here, that's what that looks like. And then we've just put a bit of parcel tape in here. So with a 6 mil hole here, a bit of parcel tape underneath just to stop the epoxy dripping through. So we've just done that all across it. Just use parcel tape because the epoxy doesn't stick to it. Just peel that off really easily afterwards. So some of these holes are in really good condition and some are not. So you can see over here, over the back here, those holes are pretty clean and dry. So for the most part, this section here is all dry, which is good. Got a bit of a rotten section just here, because in fact you can see the staining here, and you can see that staining carries on down here and then sort of goes into this area here. You can see it sort of channels down here. And same deal over there as well, there's a bit over there. So we are going to have to cut these sections out, but for today all we want to do is get those holes epoxied from above. That just stops any more damage. These holes will also allow it to dry out as well, and then we'll come back afterwards and just cut these sections out that we need to and re-core them, but at least we're going to stop the damage or any more damage for now. So I've just got a couple more holes to parcel tape up. Richard is just mixing some epoxy out there, and we'll come in from the top and just fill those holes with that epoxy. Okay, that's going to be a wrap for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you on the next one.